for the 7 stars!
It's a favourite line from Dunedain in Divide and Conquer in particular, but what are the 7 stars? The off-the-cuff answer is that each star correlates with each of the Palantiri, the seeing stones that were a gift from the Elves to the Numenorians and brought back to Middle-earth by Elendil and his sons. These were 7 in number, and these smooth and manicured balls are quite the ornament and worthy of praising the heavens, but I did some more digging to find if there was a bit more significance. In fact, it seems like my old video on the doors of Moria held an answer, as the Elves and Dwarves of Khazad-dûm had inscribed 7 stars onto the western gate. If you want to actually watch that, then I'd recommend you don't. Upon the gate, you have Durin's crown of stars, and there are 7 there, each star for the 7 clans of the dwarves. Durin saw the stars in the reflection of the lake called the Mirror, but it isn't known if it is actually a real constellation, so it probably isn't the same 7 stars that we are concerned with. Stars. The elves love their stars, and when they awoke, it was the first that they saw in the dark of Middle-earth. Barda had just finished fashioning the stars and constellations, and a notable one was the great sickle, Valacirca. And high in the north, as a challenge to Melkor, she set the crown of 7 mighty stars to swing, Valacirca, the sickle of the Valar and sign of doom. This was also known as the Wain. To me and you, though, it is the plough, or the Big Dipper. Look into the sky and at night in the northern hemisphere, and you'll notice it has yet 7 stars. The 7 stars were a sign of defiance against evil and hope for victory against the darkest nights. The men of the west held to this too, as their forebears had fought in the wars of Beleriand. Gandalf recited a poem, or rhyme of lore, to Pippin on the journey to Minas Tirith that went so. Tall ships and tall kings, 3 times 3. What brought they from the founded land over the flowing sea? 7 stars and 7 stones and 1 white tree. 9 ships of Numenorians fled the downfall. The 7 stones seems to be self-explanatory, as the gifts once given to Amandil, father of Elendil, and the 7 stars may have been the male descendants of him. Some of the artwork that Tolkien provided of the 7 stars and the white tree, that was the symbol of the House of Elendil, shows how there are the 3 main stars above the tree, and then 4 below it, amongst the 7 white blossoms. I'm no iconographer or that bloke from the Da Vinci Code, but perhaps the 3 main stars are for Elendil, Isildur and Anarion, and the other 2 would have been for Elendil and Meneldil, the 2 eldest sons of Isildur and Anarion respectively. Now the final 2 stars I originally thought would have been for Ciarán and Aratan, the 2 other sons of Isildur, but they weren't actually alive at the time of the downfall of Numenor. Now, I went on to a bit of an obscure site where it said on this Wikipedia-esque site that actually Anarion had 3 other elder children, and perhaps 2 of these may have been male descendants, thus they would have been afforded a star each. Otherwise, I don't know, perhaps this sigil had been made following the births of Ciarán and Aratan, but I don't see that as a likely thing, because otherwise Gandalf's rhyme of lore wouldn't have made any sense, given that they would have been, or they should have been, on the ship. I suppose the blossoms in the tree could be loyal princes, such as the Lords of Belfalas, or perhaps they are for the 7 major fiefs of the new kingdoms of Gondor and Arnor that were to flower and thrive. Now, this seems weird that such a symbol of the royal house would note people not of his immediate line, so it was perhaps just the same as the stars. And as Gandalf had recited the rhyme of lore that the 7 stars and 7 stones, they are separate, it would seem that they are both separate entities too, although that is ambiguous.
Sharpen your swords! Sharpen your swords! Sharpen your swords! Swords! For the 7 stars!